Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about the prelims for Jack Hermansson versus Joe Pyfer, the fight card. Whatever. The main event is Trevin Giles versus Carlos Prates. Carlos Prates is making his UFC debut here. He had a successful fight on the Contender Series against this guy, Mitch Ramirez. TKO'd him early in round two. And this guy, I think he's being given a high profile debut here in a prelim main event spot because he is a deadly Muay Thai striker. He's exciting. This guy has excellent kicks from both stances. He likes to switch, and his best asset is probably his knees coming right up the middle. He's got some well timed knees, and they're fucking deadly. And usually he's got the height and the reach. Here he does as well. He's got 1 inch of height, but 4 inches of reach. And I expect him to be the one bringing the longer attacks. But he is not a perfect fighter. I venture to say he's vulnerable on the ground, but I really don't know. I mean, he's been tapped 3 times, but they were all over a decade ago. Since then, he hasn't shown much in the way of grappling to make me think he's good down there. I do think it'll be his biggest weakness at the UFC level with UFC grapplers, but it hasn't cost him a fight in over 10 years. By the way, I wasn't able to see all of his losses. That's the first thing I do is try to see the losses. He's got 6 of them. I've seen 3 of them. His last one was by decision, and that's his only somewhat recent loss. It's still quite a few years ago, and I wasn't able to see it. But before that, submitted 3 times and TKO'd twice, and I was able to see 3 of those. The 2 TKOs, one of them was an injury. He was taken down and injured his leg on the takedown. It is what it is. The other one, he was caught cold by this guy who strikes me as like a Marco Madsen type. At least he kind of looked like him. And he just ran after Carlos Prates. And I think Prates was sitting back, waiting to throw perfectly timed knees on this shorter wrestler type of fighter, if the guy even is a wrestler. And the guy just started swarming him and teeing off on him, and it lasted for like 2 minutes, and he never made any adjustments. Just got his ass kicked for 2 minutes till the ref put an end to it. It wasn't a good look, even though he looked healthy, I guess. He didn't go down, and all he was doing was eating strikes. But it definitely didn't make him look very adaptable. It was a shitty loss. And then he was tapped 3 times, like I said, all 10 years ago, but tried to find him, and I only found one where he lost via heel hook. Whatever. I think at the UFC level, he will be vulnerable on the ground. Trevin Giles is a well-rounded guy. He's the guy that tapped out Brendan Allen. I don't know if you knew about that, but he tapped him out in the LFA or whatever. But Trevin Giles, I do think, has more going on, certainly on the ground. It just does he have the wrestling to take it there. And I'm sure he does once or twice, but can he make a thing out of it? And I can't count on it, but I can certainly bet on it. I think there's value on Trevin Giles between the grappling, the potential grappling advantage, and also on the feet. Trevin Giles is somebody who is fundamentally sound. He's a little vulnerable, but he's got a jab that could prove to be the best weapon in this fight. And in most fights of his, it's the single best striking weapon. You start mixing in Gabriel Bonfim guillotines, and maybe it's not the best weapon. But in this fight here, it could be. He's got a great jab. That's his best weapon. And against a guy that does have 4 inches of height of reach on him and likes these longer attacks, that could be what A, keeps him safe in the first place, and B, opens up takedowns and whatever else he's got planned. So Trevin Giles, fuck it. Trevin Giles is the pick. The pick doesn't mean anything to me. The bet means something to me. Small bet on Trevin Giles at plus 205. I just think they got these odds wrong, and it's all a fucking guessing game anyway. But I see what everybody else sees with Carlos Prates. I think he's very dangerous. I think he's a guy that can, if he's given a striking battle, can shine against almost anybody, against a lot of fighters. But Trevin Giles is somebody who is overlooked at this point. And he's also a guy who can scratch and claw. We've seen him get how many tight, grimy decisions. Roman Dolidze, James Krause, Preston Parsons somewhat recently. Whoever the hell else. It was another one. He's a guy that, while he never looks in pristine shape down the stretch in these fights. He's outlasting and securing decisions against good fighters at the UFC level. So worth a sprinkle at the very least. Let's go, Trevin Giles. But Carlos Prates, again, he brings the excitement. So I certainly wouldn't care. I wouldn't hate it if he arrived on the scene and got a big, emphatic knockout over Trevin Giles to begin his UFC career. Because the guy is an exciting prospect. But we're here talking money. So mine's on Giles. And that's it. The next fight is Balaji Oki versus Damir Hadzovic. Balaji Oki is another UFC newcomer, and this guy is almost a 3-1 favorite, I think. I stopped looking at the odds once I decided not to bet on it, but he's definitely my pick to win. But I just can't bet on him. A UFC newcomer at such lopsided odds. But on the flip side, I'm not going to be betting on Damir Hadzovic either. A lot of times I'll find value on that underdog side, but here I'm just straight up picking Balaji Oki to win. I think Balaji Oki can get the better of Damir Hadzovic everywhere, frankly. I think Damir Hadjovic's only path to victory is taking Balaji Oki down and maybe wearing him out and exploiting some cardio issue or something that I'm not aware of. But as of now, I think I've seen the majority, if not all of his fights. Not a lot of weaknesses for Balaji Oki. He had one loss, and I think it was his debut fight against this guy, Sebastian DeFranco. Wrestling is what cost him that fight. Wrestling was what did him in. But I have to say, for a guy that probably is used to being the hammer, he did a good job being the nail. He was able to take it even deep into the fight, but put into the crucifix to finish the fight. And he kept himself safe and ended up walking away without getting finished. So there's that. But that was his only real weakness. I mean, he had this other fight as an amateur that was a split draw. It wasn't a draw. He dominated the guy, and wrestling was a big part of his victory there. But Balaji Oki, since that debut loss to Sebastian DeFranco, he's looked perfect pretty much. And beyond perfect, he's looked dangerous. Really fucking dangerous. 5 wins of his 8 wins come by knockout or TKO, 1 by submission, and 2 by decision. We saw him get Dylan Salvador out of there in the Contender Series, and that was a barrage of strikes, but really it was the body shot in the middle of all that. Body shot did him in, I'm very sure of it, and a body shot also did this guy Tudor in. He fought this guy Tudor, and it was the same thing, a barrage, but really the body shot. And that's the thing with Balaji Oki. He's very dangerous, but he's got excellent striking as well. He will mix it up. And if he has you hurt, smells blood in the water, he's probably going to put you away. And body shots might do it for him. He did have another body shot, a knee to the body over this guy, Josimar or something. Josimar Silva, probably. And that was with his back against the cage. And he just landed the perfect shot. So he is just danger. He's going to have a physicality advantage over Damir Hadzovic. And Damir Hadzovic, while he is a well-versed fighter, at the UFC level with UFC physicality, that whole top game has been taken away from Damir Hadzovic. Although he did beat Marco Polos Reyes in that way. But generally speaking, as a UFC fighter, that's all been taken away from him. And in fact, it's been his biggest weakness, the wrestling. He's not the easiest guy to finish, but he's one of the easier guys to bully around. And Balaji Oki has a beast of a double leg. Covers a lot of ground, and he's definitely a well-versed guy, and I'm siding with him to get the better of Damir Hadzovic. Damir's only been finished twice, once by knockout, once by submission. The knockout was the Mirbek Taisimov, who's such a dangerous striker. He's already forgotten about, but the guy was incredible, and he knocked him out with a beautiful, beautiful uppercut. And Renato Moicano is the one guy to choke him out. That was with a rear naked choke in like 30 seconds or whatever. And then he screamed at him, and they had a whole funny moment. But I don't think Balaji Oki is even close to Renato Moicano on the ground. And, as of now, he's too raw. It's too early to say. But I don't think he's going to be as dangerous as Taisimov was either. Taisimov is exceptionally dangerous. But still, between the two, Balagioki is the more dangerous guy. He's the better physical force. He's bigger, got 1 inch of height, 3 inches of reach, and I trust his cardio as well. Seeing him fight to a decision hard in a winning effort and in a losing effort. So Balagioki is the pick, and again, I can't even find the heart to bet on Damir Hadzovic, even though he's the savvy UFC veteran at pretty long odds here. Next up is Loma Lukbume versus Bruna Brazil. And I will be picking Loma Lukbume to win this fight, but my only play, betting wise, will be resisting the urge to bet on Bruna Brazil. That's my play. I pick Loma to win because I think she is technically superior, but my doubts all come from her being physically inferior, which is almost always the case, and is certainly the case here. Bruna Brazil's got a world of height and reach on her, and come fight night, she's going to have a world of weight on her as well. And in addition to all that, I'd say she's the more dangerous girl, certainly, between the two. But still, I don't expect danger to play the biggest role in this fight. And I expect Loma Lukbume to outpoint Bruna Brazil. I think Bruna could find a lot of success if she's able to get on top of Loma. She's able to get on top of her and lay that big long frame across her body from half guard and just control her. Or if she's able to wrap those legs around her, I think Loma could be in trouble, certainly, and won't be able to deal with the physicality so easily of Bruna Brazil like she would on the feet, trying to manage the range. But I think Loma's going to keep herself safe. She has leveled up her own grappling over the last few years since she's made it to the UFC. She's had a lot of success with her wrestling, and even recently got her first submission victory, I think, in her MMA career against Elise Reed. So she's shown to be more than just a one-trick pony at the UFC level, which is awesome. And of course, she's a problem, a nightmare inside the clinch. She's a nightmare in the clinch despite her small stature. Just keep you off base the whole time with trips. And she's gotten the better of some solid wrestlers there as well. So I feel comfortable picking her, but I'm not going to bet on her because Bruna Brazil is that much bigger and stronger. And I'd also say, despite the recent success of Loma, Bruna's the more dangerous grappler. More dangerous, more effective, and of course she's got some nice submission wins. A third-round guillotine over Alexia Tainara, who's not great or whatever, but she's not dog shit either. And also, this fight I have to mention, Bruna Brazil's been TKO'd 3 times. That's how she lost all 3 of her fights. One of them was an injury. I saw that one. The other one was Denise Gomez hitting her with the same overhand over the course of 7 minutes and finally getting her out of there. And then the first loss I haven't seen, but it was a TKO to Ariane Canellosi, who is a former, if not current, UFC fighter. So I don't know how that one went. If it was on the ground, I feel like it could have been, knowing Ariane Canellosi. But regardless, that's how she's been beaten all 3 times, by TKO. Still, despite being aware of that, I would be surprised if Loma got her out of there via TKO in any way. A knockout on the feet or ground and pound on the ground. I just don't see it coming. I think Loma's primary path to victory here is a decision. And that is my pick. But again, I'm not betting on it. And my only play, again, is resisting the urge to bet on Bruna Brazil, which will dissipate as I get drunker. Next up is Devin Clark versus Marcin Prachnio. I'm picking Devin Clark to win. I think Devin Clark is the more well-rounded fighter with overall better offense. But these guys are both guys that have been finished quite a bit, especially via TKO. 4 TKO losses for Marcin Prachnio. He had 3 consecutive knockout losses inside the UFC, and then also was knocked out by Alexander Rakic outside the UFC, who also knocked out Devin Clark inside the UFC. All right, whatever. But anyway, yeah, they both have been knocked out quite a bit, and Marcin Prachnio is the more dangerous striker between the two. So while there's definitely a little room there for Marcin Prachnio to win a stylistic matchup, I still favor Devin Clark. I think Devin Clark's the more well-rounded fighter. I think he can. I do think he can hurt Marcin Prachnio on the feet, but I know that guy with his gigantic legs, he can bully marching Prachnio against the cage, if not go through him with his wrestling and score points on the ground. I think this one, I can't believe I'm saying I think it's likely to go to a decision. I would favor it to go to a decision, but that's not something you could ever bet on, considering how both these guys have been finished so many times. And Clark, he's got 3 TKO losses, knockouts really, but also 4 submissions. I don't want to say a submission is off the table in this fight, but coming from Marcin Prachnio, I'd be really surprised. So I think Prachnio could win by hitting the right shot, but I think Devin Clark is able to make this his fight, not lose a kickboxing bout at range from Marcin Prachnio. I think he either dictates it on the feet with his power and strikes his way into a grappling match in one way or another, which could mean a boring fight where they're stuck against the cage for 15 minutes. But especially if that's the case, I imagine Devin Clark's legs being the one driving Marcin Prachnio into the cage. So Devin Clark is the pick. I have a small bet on him at minus 200, but I don't love it again because a lot of vulnerabilities here. Next up is Jeremiah Wells versus Max Griffin. I was really looking to pick and bet on Max Griffin here, but instead I'm going with Jeremiah Wells. I do think Griffin takes away the danger of Wells in this fight. I'd be really surprised if Jeremiah Wells was able to put him away, and I'm aware of how dangerous Jeremiah Wells is. But even with that danger gone, I still pick Wells to out-hustle him and win a decision. Max Griffin's only been finished once. It was by Colby Covington, kind of like a slow death type of thing where the ref just had to pull Colby off of him because he was mauling Max. But it's not like Max was concussed there. He was just exhausted. Other than that, though, he's looked incredibly healthy in defeat, even going up against one of the best potential stars, up and comers, whatever, in Michael Morales last year. And Max Griffin has always hung tough. So I'd be really surprised if Wells got him out of there, even though Wells is incredibly dangerous. But where Wells does win, I think, is with wrestling. Jeremiah Wells, I expect him to be better on the ground. I think he has better jiu-jitsu. And even though Max can have good anti-wrestling, I'm picking Jeremiah Wells to win the wrestling battle. He's got a beast of a double leg where he could take you down from the other side of the octagon. And he, despite looking a little more vulnerable as of late, is still a very healthy fighter. Matthew Semmelsberger looked like he knocked him half unconscious a few times, but Jeremiah Wells was still able to get back on the horse and wrestle his way to a gritty decision there, which was very impressive. And against Carlston Harris, he was tapped in round 3. I guess you could attribute that to his cardio. I'm sure it had a lot to do with it, but it also had a lot to do with that being Carlston Harris's best move by far, his anaconda choke. It's gotten him a lot of his big victories. But I'm picking Wells. I think Wells is certainly, despite looking a little more vulnerable lately, I don't think he's going to get knocked out by Max Griffin. Max Griffin generally is more of a point fighter at the UFC level. Although if he has Song Kadan, he might have a different take there. But I think Jeremiah Wells is going to be in a fight where he can win it with his physicality and his wrestling, and that's going to be the difference maker. And I'm picking him to win. On the ground, I do think he's got better jiu-jitsu as well, but I don't think Max is going to be getting tapped. I think it'll be more a case of top position being the difference maker. So Jeremiah Wells is the pick. His money line is minus 170. I'm lukewarm on that. But I'll wait till the prop bets open because, again, if he beats Max Griffin, if anybody does, frankly, I'm very sure it's by decision. Next up is Zach Pauga versus Bogdan Guskov. I don't know what to make of this fight, just telling you here at the top. I am leaning towards Zach Pauga, but that's only because you've got a gun to my head and you're forcing me to give you a prediction. But I do think Bogdan Guskov is the much more dangerous guy, certainly proven so at this point. And Zach Pauga does have that one knockout loss to Muhammad Usman, where he was knocked out with an arm punch. Whether it was a jab or a hook, it was just his arm, although it's a very big fucking arm. And Zach Pauga went out. So I have doubts about Zach Pauga for a guy with such little experience, but that's really it. Zach Pauga is a guy that is comfortable fighting for 15 minutes. I don't envision any cardio issues with him at the UFC level. Seen him go hard with Modestas Bukauskas, close decision, and of course against Jordan Wright, which the main takeaway from that Jordan Wright fight is that Zach Pauga is just not dangerous at all. If he was a dangerous guy, he would have put in Jordan Wright away instead of grinding him down. So Zach Pauga leaves a lot to be desired offensively. And that's why I don't trust him so much, even though he's my pick in this fight, because Bogdan Guskov seems like a very vulnerable fighter. Incredibly dangerous, but incredibly shaky in a lot of ways. And if Zach had been a proven finisher in even one way, I'd feel more comfortable betting on him. But instead, the fight I have in my head with him winning is him crowding Bogdan Guskov and taking away Guskov's danger. That's what the game plan is. But look, Bogdan Guskov, he's much more dangerous. This guy has a whole world of knockouts, incredible right hand, some Roy Nelson, some straight punches where he just cracks the guy and TKOs him. Forced one guy unconscious with ground and pound. He's just a much more dangerous guy between the two. But he's also more shaky, in my opinion, despite the one punch knockout, the arm punch knockout for Zach Pauga. Bogdan Guskov was knocked out by a jab himself to this guy Vasilevsky. Vyacheslav Vasilevsky. I know how to spell that fucking name too, but not pronounce it. But he was knocked out by a jab to that guy. And also, he's been knocked half silly. This guy, Constantine, had him almost out of there, I believe, in round two. Volkan Oezdemir, who hits very fucking hard, even if his reputation is, diminished over the years. But Volkan Oezdemir had him staggering a little bit in their fight before getting him out of there with a rear naked choke. I just, I don't trust Guskov, his durability on the feet and on the ground. I think it's a major weakness for him at the UFC level. But I've also seen him on the ground where he's not total dog shit on the regional scene. That fight where I told you he got knocked down by the guy Constantine, he actually won that with a triangle choke in round two, which just blows my mind looking at his total body of work. But he's not a total fish out of water. It's just he's not anything exceptional on the ground. The ground game in this fight will be won by who gets top position. It's not going to come down to much more than that. It's a wrestling battle. And on the feet, while Bogdan Guskov is much more dangerous, he leaves a lot to be desired. And I've got a lot of doubt about him. So the pick is Zach Pauga. I guess I'd envision him slowing the fight down in one way or another and winning a decision with a good amount of control time in one way or another on the ground or in the clinch. But I couldn't trust that because there's so much weakness going around every which way. And Zach Pauga is not, he's just not a dangerous guy, too, which again, that would really help me isolate a prop bet or two. But he's not dangerous at all. So the pick is decision, but that's something I can't trust. We'll see what fucking happens. And if you want to hedge, Bogdan Guskov by knockout would be the way to go. Next up, the last fight of the evening, we've got Daniel Marcos taking on Aoriquileng. Daniel Marcos is coming off that shit fight to Davy Grant. Could have gone either way, and I really think it should have gone the other way. But he got the nod, and he remains a perfect fighter, 15-0. And I think that was a uniquely difficult matchup. Davy Grant is a very unorthodox striker, and he's very dangerous on the ground as well. Just a really unorthodox challenge amongst a lot of orthodox challenges in the featherweight division. But here he's fighting a guy that's a little more conventional, Aoriquileng. And by conventional, I still mean fucking wild and whatever compared to Daniel Marcos. I think Aoriquileng is more powerful, maybe, and more aggressive. But I think Daniel Marcos is definitely the better striker. He's definitely the better striker. He's much more calm and measured. And I do think Marcos's low output could cost him. In fact, I think it did cost him in his last fight. But I think eventually it will cost him some valuable points and eventually decisions. But here against Aoriquileng, I don't think he's going to be falling victim to volume or even power. I think Daniel Marcos is going to keep himself safe. I think he's going to be piecing up Aoriquileng, and I think he's going to keep this fight on the feet, which is crucial for him. Aoriquileng, not that I think Aoriquileng is better on the ground. Not that he's a monster on the ground, but I certainly think he's better, and I think he'd have a lot of success taking Daniel Marcos down. I don't know if he can find a finish in one way or another, but I'm pretty sure he can control him if he got on top. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think this fight's going to be contested on the feet. I've got Daniel Marcos slowly but steadily taking over a striking battle. I don't think it's going to look as pretty as it did over Simon Oliveira, or that whoever the guy was that he put away a year ago. But I don't think it's going to look like the Davy Grant fight either. I think Daniel Marcos will be leading the dance for the majority of this fight, especially once he figures out the timing and everything with Aoriquileng. And I think he wins a decision. That'd be my pick for this fight. He's got half his wins by knockout, half by decision, 7-8, one way or the other, 0 submissions. But Aoriquileng, despite the recent knockout loss to Aiemann Zahabi, and that was a rough one, it still is only knockout loss. So really all the weight on that loss comes from the fact that it was so recent. But when you look at the whole profile of Aoriquileng in totality, I don't think he should get knocked out here to a guy that is very comfortable being the point fighter. But I still think Marcos is a superior striker, and I'm taking him to win. Daniel Marcos wins the decision is the pick. The bet is non-existent right now, but I'll wait to see the props. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other fucking videos. God damn it.